All right, join us review what played out in the FX market this week. We have Mr. Oladipo Jai is a head fixed income and FX at Chapel Hill Denham, joining us this afternoon. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, and it's been quite the week for the Naira. You know, in the market, we've seen a lot of demand. Sometimes they say supply is not meeting up with that demand. But how would you describe the performance of Naira in the official window and also in the parallel market?
Well, in the parallel market, we will say that it's been a week of beating for Naira. We've seen Naira plummet and actually cross the 1,700 mark. And currently, Naira is trading around the 1,740 in the parallel market. And but when you now compare to what's happening in the official window, currently Naira is around the 1,160. When you're looking at the NAPEM window, it closed at 1,601.20 kobo yesterday. But don't forget that this week we've seen the central bank actually intervening in the market about 3 times this week. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've not seen Naira actually being beaten aggressively in the official window compared to what we saw, what we are seeing in the parallel market. So for me, I think it's intervention. And the central bank has not done anything around BDC sale in the last 2 weeks, and I think that's also one of the reasons why we've not seen any impact at the parallel window.
So that means that we need to see some action, you know, when it comes to what the CBN is selling to BDCs to keep that segment, you know, of the market stable. But looking at that gap between the parallel and the official window, do you still see that gap, you know, close, you know, going forward?
Yeah, I think one of the problems is I think it's more like the modality that the CBN is currently adopting currently. And for me, I also think that Naira would have done better in the official window if central bank replicates what they did in the month of August. And Ladi, don't forget, in the month of August, the central bank was in the market. They actually conducted retail DAS system where banks submitted the bids for their customer, and the central bank actually sold 50% or met 50% of demand at that particular point in time. And I must tell you, in the next 3 weeks, we saw a great respite on Naira. And but since then, what the central bank has been doing is just to actually sell into the bank market. And I don't think that will be effective enough to actually help keep the currency stable, because at the end of the day, the real user of the fund may not actually get allocation directly from the bank. So the central bank needs to find a way to ensure that this allocation get directly to the end user. And on the parallel market, I think it's taken too long around this BDC reform. By now, we should have gotten to a level where we now know the actual number of BDC that's working with central bank. And also, the central bank can then now actually allocate on a weekly basis to some of these BDC so as to help to meet the needs of people that actually needs funds for invisible. There are people that want to pay school fees. There are people that are traveling. There are people that are going for medical tourism. And just last week, the central bank governor actually mentioned that they actually allocated over $2.5 billion for medical tourism this year. But my question is that in what window was that actually allocated? Because yet we are still seeing pressure at the parallel market. So the central bank needs to find a way to cater for these people that are actually going to the parallel market to actually meet their demand. Because if they fail to do that, we'll continue to see that gap actually expand further.
Right, and we see, you know, the central bank intervening every now and then in the market, but at the same time, we see the central bank governor saying that our foreign reserves hit about $40 billion. So what does that tell us? We see interventions, and we're still seeing a rise in our foreign exchange, forex reserves. What was that telling us?
So I think there was a question that was posted to the central bank governor at Washington, D.C. Sometime this week around the fact that the reserve is going up, and but yet does it mean that the central bank is not actually catering for the market appropriately? because if your currency is suffering and at the same time your reserve is growing, it doesn't. There's no correlation between that, because when you see improved reserve, it simply means that you expect the currency to appreciate. And the response was the fact that they, for a long time, decided not to actually intervene in the market aggressively, knowing fully well they want market to determine the current prices. And I think that's one of the things that central bank is doing currently. But I'm not in support of that, because my view is that you can't continue to actually increase your reserve and your currency continue to actually suffer in that regard. And don't also forget there's this pass-through effect of depreciated currency. And you are fighting inflation, but at the same time, you are allowing your currency to depreciate. I don't think that's the best way to actually run the economy. I think the central bank needs to actually rise up to that occasion. There's no reason why you are keeping the dollar when the needs is out there. It's better you actually allocate for people that actually need this one, so as to help to actually stem the current aggressive tide on the currency.
All right, so for this fourth quarter, do you see any catalysts coming that could boost demand for the naira, or do you see more demand for dollars in this fourth quarter?
Well, I think there will be demand for dollars, and that's certain. Knowing fully well that you are getting closer to the end of the year, and there's a peculiarity of demand around the unitary period. Nigeria is not that big productive country, so it means that most of what we consume in that season need to be imported, and as a result, you expect to see more demand in the CBN window. So, but the other side is that is the central bank ready to actually rise up to the occasion to actually ensure that they actually supply appropriately to buyers of the FX. I feel that the central bank needs to do that in such a time like this because, like I said earlier on, there's no reason actually keeping the currency, increasing your reserve when you know that there's need out there. So I expect more demand at the later part of the year, and but in terms of FX revenue, I don't think we're expecting any sizable revenue except.
All right,
central bank. The government decided to actually visit the international market.
All right, yeah. So
like
I lost you for a moment, but you're back now. You can conclude your thought.
So I said that we are not expecting any sizable FX inflow, except we decide to actually go back into the Eurobond market for bond issuance.
All right, let's. We've seen that the Dangote refinery is going to be able to purchase oil now. With Naira, and definitely that's supposed to reduce the pressure, on the Naira. But do you see that? Really, creating that demand that we're looking for the Naira?
Well, I think one way or the other, it will moderate the pressure in terms of because when we look at the need for dollar by all these oil markets, it's on a daily basis needs because of the daily consumption of PMS, diesel, and the likes. So one way or the other, that will actually reduce the demand in that window. But the flip side of it is that what would have normally come to us as FX revenue is not coming to us as FX revenue again. So you have to come in Naira because the agreement is the supply of crude for Naira. So it simply means that what you would normally have sold into the national market for a dollar revenue, now you are selling into a local market for a Naira revenue. One way or the other, it will match out the demand that you used to see in that window. But however, when you look at both sides, one way or the other, it's still better because there will be little respite compared to where we used to be.
Right, and I'm sure we need to see more of that demand for the Naira, going forward at this time to help reduce all of that pressure. But we've seen comments out from the central bank's MPC. The last rate-setting meeting, and consensus is all of them. It was unanimous. Raise rates, at that meeting, and from what we're seeing for forward guidance, it seems like rates will continue to go up, at this time. But talk to me about the last move, by the MPC, and what you're expecting for the last meeting in 2024.
Well, the last meeting actually, the decision actually took a lot of people aback, and one of the reasons was that when we saw 2 months of disinflation, a lot of people were of the view that it would be a time where the monetary policy guys need to actually reduce their occasional. But when we saw another 50 basis point rate hike, and it's not only even the 50 basis point, it's the fact that the CRR was now taken up from 45% to 50%. That's another 500 basis points in that regard. So it simply means that the central bank went all out hawkish to actually stifle the economy of liquidity, so as to actually rein in inflationary pressure. And for us, in retrospect now, I think they made the right decision because I guess they factored in the fact that at a point in time, by the end of the month of September into the early October, the commencement of these local production of PMS and the impact of price. And I think that's one of the reasons why they actually told that line. Currently, we are seeing it clearly where PMS is currently, and we saw the inflation figure for the month of September, where inflation now on the rise again. So for me, I think that in the month of November, I think they will be less hawkish than what we saw in the month of September. So I would take a bet around a 25 to 50 basis point hike, considering the fact that the economy is looking heated up already.
Right. From what you're seeing so far, when do you think we can start to see reasonable progress when it comes to this fight against inflation? Do you think we're going to see that in 2025 or is it 2026 or what do you think? Is this going to stay with us for the longest time?
No, I think from 2025 we will actually see respite, and if you look at where we were in the month of July and August, is a point out the fact that we're already on the right track before the readjustments of the PMS price, and that actually fueled another round of inflationary pressure. And I think that in no time this will wane out, and after this, I expect us to move to a level where we'll start seeing a bit of respite in terms of food pricing. And also another thing is the fact that the fiscal policy guys also, though they were not proactive, they were reactionary. But one of the things they are doing currently is to actually remove excess duty on some of these imported raw material products that actually could actually fuel inflationary pressure or on food items generally. And also another thing is the fact to actually ensure ease of transportation of goods from the north down to the south, and also creating special security apparatus to actually work in states that are producing food for the nation. So these are some of the things that they are currently doing. And I think we'll start seeing the result in no time. And the result is the fact that the price of food item will actually drop. And when the price of food item drop, the impact will be that that will also affect the headline inflation positively. And also, when we start seeing stability of currency as well, the pass-through effect of inflation through effects also, that one will also disappear. And I think when we look at all these things all together, I feel that before the end of Q1 in 2025, we'll start seeing respite.
Right, and talking about food prices and inflation and all of that, we see the National Bureau of Statistics is planning to rebase the GDP and CPI. That's for November. What do you think this will do to the data that we normally get when it comes to inflation data and GDP? Do you see big changes coming with that data, and how do you see it influencing what the policymakers are going to do going forward?
Well, rebasing of CPI and GDP is a norm in the market, and because when you look at the base year you've been using, you get to a level that it doesn't sound reasonable again. Imagine you still using a base year of 1995 in such a time like this. So it already tells you that whatever measures you are taking may not be realistic, and that's one of the reasons why I actually supported the decision of MBS in this regard. So what it will mean is that it will give us the reality of the time we have, and also there will be regime change in terms of the period where this data is covered. But at the end of the day, it gives us a true picture of where we are supposed to be. Normally, and I think that's one of the things that NBS needs to actually come out to, so that people will not think that it's more like data mining or doctoring data. What they need to do is that make sure that there's a static timeline around it, that every five years we will rebase. So with that, it's scientific. So everybody knows that we are rebasing in 2024. So it means that the next time we are rebasing will be 2029. So when you are doing that in 2029, nobody will look at it as a way to actually doctor data. So I think that's one of the ways to actually ensure the credibility of such data.
All right, thank you so much. Always great having a perspective. Oladipo Ajayi, head fixed income and FX at Chapel Hill Denham. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Oladipo, for having me.